America starts to falter in just 72 hours. Walmart is gone. No more Target. Once familiar locations disappear off the map. Drugs are hard to come by. The cost of food is soaring. Local businesses have empty shelves when customers wait in line outside. The issue spreads more quickly than the news in rural areas. Walmart is a healthcare center, not simply a store. A pharmacy, bank, and optician combined. Urban families often purchase everything from school supplies to baby formula at Target. The loss of these retail behemoths has left Americans with an unanticipated dilemma. How would America fare without Walmart and Target? Chaos breaks out in the first week. It's not just empty shelves when Walmart and Target close. Millions of Americans' lives have been impacted by the breakdown of a supply chain. Everyday activities depend on these two retail behemoths. When people are unable to purchase necessities from these establishments, just think of the mayhem. Approximately 90% of Americans purchase food and other essentials at Walmart or Target at least once a month, according to the National Retail Federation, or NRF. These businesses offer more than just merchandise. They also carry food, medicine, medical supplies, and more. Millions would experience an unanticipated scarcity problem as a result of their closure. Although Whole Foods, Costco, and Kroger might be able to cover some ground, they are unable to match Walmart and Target's reach. Walmart and Target control around 40% of the U.S. grocery retail sector, a huge difference from Kroger's 11% share. Products will run out and prices will rise as customers overrun smaller shops and other supermarkets. The remaining stores' shelves would be empty within the first week. There would be a shortage of commonplace goods including instant noodles, processed foods, drinks, fresh produce, milk, meat, and spices. This problem would not only affect urban areas, it would also have a significant impact on rural areas, where Walmart and Target frequently have suppliers with near monopoly status. Reaching another store is already difficult for many rural people, so this shortage would cause a real emergency. Walmart and Target are significant suppliers of pharmaceuticals and healthcare goods, offering over-the-counter medications, vitamins, personal care products, and medical equipment that is essential to public health. According to a Deloitte poll, 40% of Americans buy both prescription and over-the-counter medications from retailers like Walmart. Millions of people, particularly those with modest incomes, would find it more difficult to obtain necessary pharmaceuticals and medical supplies if they were closed. There were major medicine shortages as a result of local pharmacies or smaller supermarkets being unable to supply the demand. It would be difficult for patients who require long-term care for ailments like diabetes, hypertension, or chronic illnesses to get life-sustaining drugs. This could result in major health problems within a week. The remaining retailers would be overburdened and unable to serve the needs of millions if Walmart and Target disappeared. Price increases would result from shortages, since smaller shops would have to deal with erratic supply and raise prices to make up for losses and increase transportation expenses. According to a Nielsen analysis, supply chain interruptions might cause food prices to rise by 10% in a matter of weeks. Basic products would cost consumers more, which would put additional hardship on families already struggling with growing living expenditures. The entire variety of necessities that families require cannot be found in smaller supermarkets. Customers would have to go further, which would put a strain on other retailers. Accessing essentials would be extremely difficult for those without a vehicle. This burden would be particularly felt by suburban dwellers who have few close shopping options. The closing of Walmart and Target would seriously disrupt supply chains in a nation where millions of people depend on delivery services. For years, millions of people have benefited from Walmart's delivery service. 30% of customers use Walmart once a week, making it one of the biggest delivery services in the U.S., according to eMarketer. Delivery services would come to a complete stop if these titans disappeared. There are bottlenecks in the distribution of goods since smaller delivery services are unable to accommodate such a huge customer base. People may find it more difficult to obtain everyday necessities if orders are postponed or canceled. Widespread panic and anxiety would be a tangible result. Because Americans are used to shopping at Walmart and Target, their abrupt departure would result in both financial and emotional pain. People would worry about their own and their family's safety if they couldn't access necessities. Low-income people would experience increased insecurity if they couldn't find food, medicine, or medical supplies. Week 2. The effects on the economy spread. The crisis's second week shows how deeply the retail system in America is being disrupted. Once providers of millions of everyday necessities, major retailers like Walmart and Target have vanished, leaving markets struggling with acute shortages in both retail and the overall economy. When food, household items, and necessities are no longer readily available on stores, customers rush to find substitutes. However, finding replacements is difficult. Independent merchants and smaller chains are unable to keep up with the increasing demand. The gap created by these retail behemoths cannot be filled by other supermarkets, even if they increase their supply efforts or extend their hours. Prices for more difficult-to-find products soar due to this shortage. The whole retail supply chain is also disrupted by Walmart and Target's absence. Restructuring channels and locating new partners are extremely difficult tasks for suppliers and manufacturers who depend on these companies' extensive distribution networks. It could take weeks or months for things to resurface on the shelves of other stores, ranging from food and home goods to consumer goods and medications. Customers are under tremendous strain as a result of this shortfall, especially low-income households and rural populations who already have difficulty accessing contemporary retail services. Transportation firms are also severely impacted. There is excess capacity as a result of carriers like FedEx, UPS, and smaller logistics companies losing the large shipments that Walmart and Target used to handle. Consequently, transportation costs increase, raising costs for both customers and businesses. As a result, global supply chains become fragmented as essential consumer goods are delayed in reaching consumers. There is also a labor crisis. Even while Walmart and Target employ millions of people, hundreds of thousands would lose their jobs if they closed. Numerous families' lives are upended when stable occupations go. Employees in retail establishments, warehouses, and customer service may experience unexpected layoffs. Workers who experience rising unemployment rates face uncertain career and life options, in addition to a lack of income. Already finding it difficult to compete with the retail behemoths, small companies become even more precarious. Local stores don't have the variety of goods and services needed to draw clients. Customers that seek alternatives face exorbitant costs, limited inventory, and subpar service in contrast to what Walmart and Target provided. These companies fight to stay in business while dealing with pressure from disgruntled customers who can't find necessities. The shortage is most noticeable in local communities, particularly in suburban and rural areas. For necessities, residents have to go further, which results in higher costs for inferior items. Financial burden is increased by this change, especially for low-income families and those who depend on the cheap retail stores like Walmart and Target. The problem is already underway by the second week. The U.S. economy is experiencing the initial shocks of disruption due to the departure of large merchants. The effects of labor disputes, supply chain failures, and consumer market disruptions are still being felt, with significant ramifications for both the economy and Americans' daily lives. Third week. Paralyzed rural America. By the third week of the crisis, when Walmart and Target have closed their stores across the country, the repercussions of this disruption have significantly changed American life, not only in large cities but particularly in rural areas. The economic and social fabric are now facing an unanticipated catastrophe as a result of what was once a daily convenience turning into a huge challenge. The lack of Walmart and Target in urban areas exacerbates already existing tensions. The well-known retail behemoths leave downtown areas, which are used to fast-paced living and convenient shopping. These chains cannot be replaced by smaller retailers with smaller inventory, which results in intense competition, skyrocketing costs, and shrinking supply. In order to compensate for supply shortages, local markets and small retailers hike prices, which forces urban customers to deal with rapidly rising living expenses. Food, household supplies, everyday necessities, and basic things are no longer easily accessible. In addition to disrupting availability, clogged supply chains and suppliers rushing to find alternate modes of transportation raise shipping costs. Urban centers become more chaotic as a result of this scarcity. People who depend on supermarkets for food and necessities who live in highly populated areas are most affected by the inconvenience. Communities need to look for alternatives, but not everyone can afford to travel further to shop, particularly those with large families or low incomes. In the meanwhile, the effects are significantly more severe in rural areas. These areas, which are already underserved by big-box retailers, lose the vital supply centers they relied on. Small local stores are the go-to option for rural communities, but they are unable to meet demand due to their limited capacity and product selection. Essentials require residents to go further, which can be difficult in places with limited retail options. Rural problems are exacerbated by transportation challenges. Large-scale distribution networks, including express delivery, specialized trucks, and logistics companies, come to a standstill when major retailers close. In places where access to important distribution systems is restricted, this results in acute shortages of supplies. Small providers are unable to service urgent rural requests or maintain transport routes. In addition to the long commutes to stores, rural inhabitants now have to deal with additional time and cost constraints. The shortage has a significant impact on public perception and disturbs daily living in both urban and rural locations. As products disappear from shelves, anxiety increases. Families worry about obtaining necessities and prescription drugs in addition to food. People who live in less affluent or isolated places with few options initially experience a growing sense of isolation. The disturbance reveals more general problems in society. Due to a lack of supplies, vital services including public utilities, healthcare, and education suffer. For example, patient care is hampered in rural hospitals due to a shortage of pharmaceuticals, medical supplies, and equipment. People who require essential medications or medical services confront acute shortages, which puts them at risk for major health problems, particularly during the winter months when flu and pneumonia are more common. By week 3, panic starts to show. As locals become needy for necessities, protests, meetings over shortages, and even possible violence could break out. Authorities are put under more stress since they have to handle social crises brought on by the disruption of the goods. The effects of Walmart and Target's closures are felt in every aspect of society, not just in the retail industry. Rural areas suffer a unique challenge, while cities struggle with shortages and price increases. As wealthy areas continue to experience relative stability while impoverished and isolated areas face insurmountable obstacles, these factors exacerbate societal differences. Social and political crisis. Fourth week. By the fourth week, the brewing fallout from the first 3 weeks explodes into a full-fledged catastrophe that goes beyond business and economics. In addition to the difficulty in locating necessities, Americans also have to deal with a significant decline in systemic trust. The question of whether I can survive is becoming more important than what I can purchase. Political unrest emerges when individuals lose faith in the ability of the government and feel unprotected. The urban environment drastically changes in big cities like New York, Los Angeles, and Chicago. Security guards are now employed by small businesses to combat an increase in vandalism and petty theft. Although police presence is growing, not all hotspots can be covered by overworked officers. Competition for limited food supply becomes a regular occurrence in densely populated areas. Long queues of desperate citizens wait in anticipation of the next shipment of food. As city relief food, warehouses run out in a matter of hours. Under duress, the social welfare system falters. Families that depend on WIC or SNAP programs are in a terrible situation. There are no stores that can provide products, even with help cards in hand. Compared to a pre-crisis norm of 18%, more than 65% of SNAP-dependent households in central states like Missouri, Arkansas, and Oklahoma are unable to obtain necessary food by week 4, according to an urgent USDA report. A politically heated wave of ire is sparked by the growing wealth disparity. People cease depending on the government in many places. By combining gifts from rich people or small businesses, local community organizations set up temporary citizen distribution centers. Although commendable, these efforts pale in comparison. Such grassroots efforts can only offer short-term respite because the number of people in need of assistance is increasing every day. Extremist views start to seep into American politics during the protracted crisis. Ideological opinions erupt on social media. One side criticizes corporate behemoths, claiming that this is an unavoidable outcome of an economy that depends too much on large corporations. The other accuses the federal government of neglecting to step in and causing unrest among the populace. Across states, from crowded metropolis to formerly peaceful rural parts, protests break out. Phrases like "no Target, no future" and "bring back Walmart" are widely used. While some protests stay nonviolent, others turn violent, with protesters swarming huge warehouses or local government buildings in search of excess inventory. Politicians have a conundrum. Voter pressure increases as Congress holds consecutive hearings to come up with solutions. In order to convert former Walmart and Target warehouses into government-run distribution hubs, some politicians are suggesting using the National Emergency Act. However, their efforts are halted by logistical obstacles. Without Walmart and Target as its backbone, no supply chain can operate efficiently. The economy is clearly contracting. According to a Bureau of Economic Analysis study, the fourth-month GDP reduction was the sharpest since the COVID-19 crisis in 2020, falling by about 1.8%. As cashiers, drivers, warehouse employees, and other employees in the Walmart and Target ecosystems lose their jobs, unemployment rises. Due to the abrupt start of the crisis, an estimated 600,000 individuals are unemployed by week 4, many of whom lack insurance. The American stock market responds bleakly. Stocks in consumer goods, retail, and logistics all fell, pulling the Dow Jones and S&P 500 lower for 3 straight sessions. Capital flight from domestic funds occurs when foreign investors lose faith in the soundness of the U.S. economy. A brief depreciation of the U.S. dollar raises import prices and raises Americans' cost of living. The middle class becomes skeptical. Fearing a months-long catastrophe, families start storing goods as if in times of war. Widespread anxiety increases about faith in the future, as well as material shortages. Discussions concerning the demise of the big box paradigm are rife on online forums. People start adopting radical ideologies, leaving urban areas, becoming self-sufficient, or creating isolated settlements. America, which used to be proud of its efficient retail networks, contemporary supply chains, and ease of use, is now faced with a fundamental dilemma. Can contemporary life survive if Walmart and Target disappear forever? People get weary as the government tries to reassure them with promises of supply chain recovery and interim relief. They've had enough of meaningless rhetoric. They require a tangible solution, but that appears to be getting farther and farther away. Opposing political forces arise in the shadow of this crisis, taking advantage of the mayhem to stoke discord and further destabilize American society. After a month, what started out as a business crisis has evolved into a systemic social and political revolution. The ramifications might go well beyond this. In addition to exposing supply chain weaknesses, the crisis that followed Walmart and Target's demise also highlights how heavily Americans have depended on convenience. Everyone gets caught up in the commotion, whether they are professionals or blue-collar workers, living in small villages or busy metropolis. What is more concerning is the widespread uneasiness. Is our system really robust if the loss of 2 brands can trigger a full-scale crisis in America? Rebuilding is necessary, but how can we accomplish it without doing this again? Although the solution is complex, even more catastrophic collapses could occur in the future if we don't take action today. How about you? What adjustments, in your opinion, are necessary to keep America from collapsing due to the loss of 2 names? Please share your opinions in the comments section below. Let's talk about it. Based on a hypothetical situation, this video provides a nuanced viewpoint on the social and economic problems facing America. Characters, information, and details are all designed for social criticism and do not represent the whole truth. The content should be viewed with a critical and open mind. In order to receive updates on new content, please share the video, hit like, and subscribe to the channel if this issue piques your interest.